Tufts to invest its endowments in accordance with its environmental ideals and concerns. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction to get everyone situated. In 1989, students successfully pressured the Tufts Board of Trustees to divest from companies doing business in apartheid South Africa. And in 1994, the Tufts Board of Trustees voted to divest from the company Hydro-Quebec after students raised awareness about the harmful environmental impact of their proposed Great Whale Electric project. This morning, Tufts Divest actually met with the Board of Trustees and requested that they divest from the top 200 publicly traded fossil fuel companies in the next 5 years. The investment committee confirmed that we have 5% of our endowment invested in the fossil fuel industry, which is new information. They've previously refused to disclose that. So that's a good step. And if you'd like to read a copy of the proposal that we submitted, you can find it on tuftsdivest.com. So that's an intro. Just to give a little overview of how this event is going to go, we have 3 speakers. We're going to have the 3 of them speak, and then afterwards we'll open up for question and answer. So please hold your questions until then. I encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. These are the experts, and they're here to help us learn about divestment. So you can invite Ladassi, William, and up. Stina is going to introduce them.
Hi everyone, I'm Stina. I'm a freshman from Pennsylvania, and I've been involved with this campaign since September. And I can already say that I feel like this might be the most important thing I do at Tufts, more than being a student. So I have the great honor of introducing our 3 guests for the evening. Bob Massey is the current president and CEO of the New Economics Institute. Founded in 1980, the New Economics Institute challenges traditional economic theory to create, communicate, and catalyze new economic theories and practices that prioritize people and the planet to create a just and sustainable world. During his career, Dr. Massey has led 3 groundbreaking sustainability organizations, serving as the president of Ceres, the largest coalition of investors and environmental groups in the United States, the co-founder of the Global Reporting Initiative, and the initiator of the Investor Network on Climate Risk, which currently has over 100 members with combined assets of over $10 trillion. His 1998 book, Loosing the Bonds, the United States and South Africa in the Apartheid Years, won the Lionel Gelder Prize for the best book on international relations in the world. Dr. Massey holds a PhD from the Harvard Business School, a master's degree from the Yale Divinity School, and a BA from Princeton University. He's also an ordained Episcopal minister. Our second guest was scheduled to be Emily Flynn, but unfortunately she was sick. But her colleague Shoshana Blank was very gracious to step in at the last minute. Shoshana is from the Sustainable Endowments Institute, which was founded in 2005, and conducts research and education on the sustainability practices of higher education institutions, including their endowment practices. Shoshana joined the Sustainable Endowments Institute in 2011 and has been working on helping colleges and universities create green revolving funds through the $1 Billion Green Challenge. Specifically, she's been designing the Green Revolving Investment Tracking System, a web tool to track energy, carbon, and cost savings data from green revolving funds. Shoshana is a graduate of St. Olaf College in Minnesota, where she double majored in biology and environmental studies, and helped to create a green revolving fund. After graduating, she was awarded a Fulbright scholarship to India, where she studied the emissions and public opinion of an improved wood-burning cook stove in a village. Our third professor is Tufts' own Julian Edgerman, professor and chair of the Tufts Department of Urban and Environmental Policy and Planning. As an ecologist turned environmental social scientist, he has both a science and social science background. His focal research interest is in the nexus between environmental justice and sustainability. Dr. Edgerman was co-founder and previously served as chair of the Black Environment Network, the first environmental justice-based organization of its kind in Britain. Dr. Edgerman holds a PhD in environmental education from the University of London, a master's in conservation policy from Middlesex University, and a bachelor's in geography and botany from Durham University. Please welcome our guest. And Bob Massey is on stage.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. I'm particularly proud to be here with Julian Edgerman, whose work I've known for a long time, but have never had the opportunity to meet. So thank you very much, and thank you, Shoshana, for pinch hitting. So I have about 3.5 hours of material, but I'm going to squeeze it into about 10 minutes. But what I'd like you to do as I speak is to think of what I'm saying as kind of a living web page. And you can go back and click on almost anything, and we'll go a little deeper into that topic, because it's, I want to get to our questions as soon as possible. I want to cover some of the core issues that emerge in this debate, and I want to be sure that I give you a sense of how dynamic and important this area is. Now, just out of curiosity, how many of you, if any, were at the Bill McKibben event on November 15th? Or what? Great. So you experienced that enormously exciting event, and you heard about the severity of climate change. I'm not going to review that information now. And one of the core reasons why the divestment movement is so important is because we are right now in history at a moment when people need to wake up. People have been, Americans particularly, have been asleep for a very long time on this question, and they've been kept asleep by the fossil fuel industry. And we are starting to see significant change just in the last few months, but we need that change to be accelerated. And the change has come through, sadly, through the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. It's come through the divestment movement, the actions of 350.org, as people realize, my goodness, this is an issue that young people care about and is not going to go away. And then finally, a little bit late, but still a very welcome moment, the President of the United States addressed it in his second inaugural address. And so we are now picking up steam, so to speak. Now, I want to speak, you heard briefly that I have a background in the South African divestment movement, and we could talk about the precedents, some of which are directly relevant and some of which are a little different, for quite some time. But I'm going to try to review a few of the arguments that came up then and that are reappearing now. Who's keeping time for me? So, yes, Katie's going to keep time for me. So you start waving at me when I'm joking. One question is the question of effectiveness. Is selling stock from an endowment an effective way to make change? Now, I'm sure we'll talk about that more tonight, but one of the things that's very important for you to remember is that the argument for engaging, and maybe even just one person or one institution, is really the core idea of civic engagement. You could say, well, maybe it doesn't matter, I don't need to vote, and unfortunately some people do. But the notion of civic engagement and of people acting, and then cumulatively of them having a major role, is a key part of the divestment campaign. We want you to act, and then we want the university to act, and then we want other universities to act, and then we want, finally, the United States government and other powerful institutions to act. Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of Cape Town and the Nobel Peace Prize winner, said, "We could not have achieved our freedom and a just peace without the help of people around the world who, through the use of nonviolent means, such as boycotts and divestment, encourage their governments and other corporate actors to reverse decades-long support for the apartheid regime. And students," he said, "played a leading role in this struggle." The next thing I want to mention is that we need to keep in mind means and ends. Divestment is not an end in itself. It is a tactic or a strategy, depending on how you look at it, to achieve certain goals. And one of the things that's critical is to remember that without public support, politicians find it very hard to act. There's an old saying that Randall Robinson, the head of Trans-Africa, an anti-apartheid leader, used to say. He said, if you want a politician to lead, you need to form a parade, and then they will find their way to the front. So what you're doing here and across the country is forming a parade, and the purpose is not only to challenge fossil fuel companies directly and have them feel the discontent of institutions and leaders, but to raise the level of urgency and personal engagement of citizens and policymakers. So it intensifies the struggle, is another way of putting it. Or to use a very American phrase, it is putting our money where our mouths are. And it is asking people to really take concrete steps in support of their goals. Now, another argument, which was heard during South Africa and will be heard, and I gather was even raised today, very traditional argument, is that selling stock violates our fiduciary duty. That sounds like a very scary thing. And let me just tell you right now, and I'll debate anybody on this, it's not true. There is the illusion that the maximization of wealth is the goal of every endowment, but that is not true. It is the maximization of wealth within the values of that institution. So you're not forced to do something you don't want to do. And on top of that, fossil fuel companies, in the long run, if you believe that climate change is a serious problem, are a bad investment. They have a broken business model. As was referred to very quickly in this slide, they have 5 times the amount of reserves that can be burned before the planet is wrecked. So either they're going to burn all that stuff and we're in deeper and deeper and deeper trouble, or the value of those reserves on their books is going to be destroyed. That's called a stranded asset, and their value is going to drop. If we put a price on carbon, if a company is successfully sued for climate damage, all kinds of things could happen. So they're bad business bad. And under no definition of fiduciary duty are you required to make a bad business bet. Just not true. Okay, we can even argue, by the way, it's an obligation to dump bad business bets. Now, another argument that comes up is, well, isn't divestment going to cause the loss of returns? Well, again, a lot of finance could come and be discussed around this, but unless you hold that the only way you can make money is to hold a bit of stock in every company in the country, which is called indexing, different forms of indexing, this is a really interesting and, again, flawed argument, because virtually every stock manager in Wall Street shrinks the investment universe according to some standard that they think is going to make money. Just to give you an example, I went on the Fidelity website, and these are all different mutual funds that shrink the universe because they think they're going to make money. The Diversified Emerging Markets Fund, the Europe Capital Appreciation Fund, the Global Commodity Stock Fund, the Growth Discovery Fund, which I have no idea what that is, the International Real Estate Fund. So everyone has a theory about how we're going to make money, and they restrict what they buy. And you can even buy into a fund of funds, which focuses on chemicals, transportation, biotech, industrials, pharmaceuticals, or retail. And it's very interesting. 5% of your endowment in energy is not very, in fossil fuels is not very much. 95% is already in other things. Okay, another argument that's often made, and I'm going to skip over this, but we can come back, is that it's better to hold the stock and engage with the companies than to sell. Now, believe me, I understand that argument because the group that I ran, Ceres, its whole theory of action was persuading investors to engage companies to push them forward on energy efficiency, climate change, and so forth. It could be a very effective strategy. The problem is that we've been trying this now for about 25 years, and it hasn't really worked with regard to climate change. Now, I want to shift very quickly because I want to give you a little bit of a magic formula. And some of you might even want to think about writing this down, because one of the things I looked at when I was studying the divestment movement was what arguments really persuaded institutions to move or to not move. What things were they worried about? You can't walk into a board of trustees or to any organization and say, morally I feel that this is repugnant, so you have to do something. Because every institution is run on the basis of its policies. that is the rules that it has built up over a long period of time to how to deal with problems when they come up. So every institution, including Tufts, has a set of policies. And so you have to figure out how to graft these moral or pressing political issues onto their policies. Now, policies tend to break down into 5 things. 1, a university worries about its survival. Are we going to be here in 100 years? It's one of our missions to have this cross-generational commitment so that what we do builds for the future and so that students like you, your great and great-great-grandchildren, can be here. And so they don't want to do things, that makes them conservative. They don't